man, we have a very special treat for you right now as we're continuing our Heritage Festival interviews. 100-year-old Miss Penny Bender joining us here as we're going to be talking to her over the next few minutes. Thank you so much for joining us and being a part of these videos, Miss Bender.
Thank you very much, Brian. I appreciate you asking me. What a thrill to be on TV.
Such a unique perspective that you've had, being 100 years old. What is it in your lifetime? What do you consider 2 or 3 of the biggest things that have changed in your life? Technology or that kind of thing, ma'am?
For the South, the whole South, air conditioning.
Okay.
It was the big change to me for everything. How you lived, how you worked, what business you were in, anything. Air conditioning was the key. Other 2 things would be the automobile, which was just beginning to get on its pins well in the early of 1900s. My father was an automobile dealer and continued to be one until 80. Yep. So I saw a lot of cars, different kinds, from limousines to puddle jumpers, if you would. I suppose the thing that I say television would come next, and radio. Radio was big, real big, because there was no television for the ordinary person until the 50s. And radio was it. If you didn't have a radio, you didn't know anything. And so the radio helped a whole lot. And I suppose since then, it's your handheld phone, the phone you keep in your pocket that you sit on for the wrong telephone number every once in a while.
I've got to ask, when is the first time you remember feeling air conditioning?
All right. The first air conditioning I ever encountered was in Newbern.
Okay.
And there were 2 places in Newbern that had air conditioning. One was the Masonic Theater, and the other was Copeland and Company. It was S.H. Copeland, I believe, is the way it was. And I was a little girl, and I remember going in there, and it was cool. But nobody that I knew, and I knew a lot of people, had any air in their homes. Nobody. And you'd open the window and get on the bed and lie there for an inch, and then you'd move over a little bigger inch, and you'd move over an inch at a time, hoping for a cooler spot on the bed. It was pretty tough. But when air conditioning did come in, even it came in big time for houses. I think we had the first. I think I'm right. When my husband and I built our house in '56, we had the first air conditioning system in the house. Was built into the house. That the first one in certainly the Paulinsville area, maybe farther. I'm not sure about that. But that's even bigger than cell phones.
How have cars changed? You mentioned also about vehicles. How have cars changed in your lifetime?
They're smaller.
Okay.
Now, you might not think they are, but they are. Back there, I remember when I was a girl learning to drive, I could drive in the driveway. That was the only place I backed in and backed out, backed in and backed out. I could really back. And because I couldn't drive on the street, I was not old enough. But I always got the car to drive that Daddy couldn't sell, of course. The one that stayed on the lot the longest is the one my mother and I drove. I think the biggest one I ever had was a Cord, C-O-R-D, a Cord. What do you call the long, the like the president rides in?
Like a limo.
Limo.
Yes.
I was looking for. A Cord limo. And I had to take my brother and sister to swimming lessons, but I couldn't have but a gallon of gas a day. That's all Daddy wouldn't let me have. Well, that Cord got 6 miles to the gallon. And I figured out every way in the world to get that cord. It had belonged to, I do know, Senator, I can't think of the senator's name. And he traded it to Daddy. But cars were big. They did not have roll up windows, by the way. All the cars of the early days, when I was 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, had, we called it Ising glass. I don't know whether Ising glass, it's like plastic glass. And it had snaps on it.
Mm-hmm.
And if it started raining, then you snap that isinglass cover over your wheel.
Okay.
One funny thing with my daddy and his car business in Newman, he was on South Front Street in Newman, right where that big Bank of America is now or something. That was where Daddy's business was. And he sold a car to this friend of his down in Cedar Island. Do you know where Cedar Island
Yes, ma'am.
is? Okay. Well, the car came. He sent the man down to deliver it. The man delivered the car. The friend called him back and said, Wesley, this is not the car I wanted. Daddy said, well, it is written right here. No, it's not. Daddy said, what's the difference? He said, it's now a used car. You brought it all the way from Newman to Cedar Island, and it's no longer the new car I had bought. But Daddy used to laugh about that. The early days, the cars, the windshield wipers were something you bought on the side.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't come with windshield wipers. You had to put your finger up above the wind and do it like this, and it would work. But that's how big the cars were. Very, very roomy. You could easily 4 people on the front, 4 people on the second one, and you might have had a little extra room for more. Mm-hmm. That was a good sized car. And then they began to get smaller. Remember, I was born in 22. In 29, the Depression hit full blown, and everything changed in Newbern, in Pollocksville, in North Carolina, in the whole world. And everybody was broke. I mean, everybody was broke. Nobody had any money. Mm-hmm. You had people talk about living from paycheck to paycheck. If you had a paycheck, you were lucky to even have that. And living from day to day is even more. I remember one time my mother was talking about she didn't have any money. Daddy didn't have any. And somebody came in as he was closing his business to pick up a little part, something for a car, and it cost 15 cents. And Mother was so relieved because she took that 15 cents and went and bought a loaf of bread and a quart of the milk. Wow. That shows you the difference. And she has supper for her children. Mm-hmm. So that was it. I'm a girl or woman of the World War II. Let me go back a little bit. I graduated from Newman High School in 39. I went to what was called Eleanor Marshall early school, 6th grade, through 6th grade. Then went downtown to the Bell Building, as we call it, which is now apartments, and then to the high school that they tore down and built when they built new high school outside of town. And I graduated from there. One of the interesting things to me is that year of 39, we did not have any graduation robes or hats or anything. The class got together and decided they were so expensive and things were so tight that we'd be better off to just wear Sunday clothes. The outfits would have cost $3 a piece. And nobody felt that we could spend that much money on something we would use so slowly, but use one time. And then I left Newbern and went to New York. Did I have a job in New York? Nope. Did I have a place to stay in New York? Nope. The first thing I did when I got to New York was get a newspaper, got to Grand Central Station, bought me a newspaper, checked my luggage, 2 bags, 2 suitcases, and started reading down the for rent, for lease, for whatever. And in New York in 43, there were lots of rooms for rent. New York now is a lot different from what it was during wartime when I was there. And I trudged blocks, going from one little room to another, and finally found one and moved in. It cost me 25 cents by the taxi to get there. But that was hard.
Yeah.
That was hard finding. Because the subway was only a nickel at that time. You could ride back and forth for a nickel. I stayed there for a couple of weeks and then left that particular place. The owner was a little bit more friendly than I liked. And I moved to a new place, which was 4949th Street. It was between Madison and Park and right across the street from Hattie Carnegie's dress shop. It was a good place to live. I also went to an employment agency and got myself a job working with J&W Salinger and Company. It was an investment brokerage firm in Wall Street, and it was 60 Wall Street. They no longer use that building for Wall Street anymore. I think it's just a museum almost. But I worked there for a year and then decided, I don't know, I thought I'd go back home. I was doing fine. I enjoyed it. I loved New York during the 43 and 44. It was great. People were mannerly. People dressed nicely. Uh, the shabby looking clothing that you see now that people wear for so many things to go to church a lot of times I didn't see it. It was decent. Everything was decent, and we got along fine. The stations, the train stations, Grand Central, and the other one whose name I can't even think of right now. Maybe it'll come to me before we're through. And but they had huge flowers for sale, almost a flower garden in every one. They had offices in them. They had Western Union in. They had everything you can think of. Restaurants, lots of restaurants. They were beautiful and fun things to be in. You could spend an afternoon in a train station and have fun. Same way people do today with Walmart. Mm-hmm. They go to Walmart and spend the day at Walmart because there's so much to see and do. I came back to Newbern and did something that people always say, can't we find a better way to say this? But I don't know how to say it differently. Maybe you can polish it up. Mm-hmm. I said, I fell into a hotbed of marine pilots.
Okay.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Yes, ma'am.
I had
yes,
a
ma'am.
wonderful time. The nicest young men, all of them, most of them from Cherry Point, learning how to fly the new Corsair, which was the plane has been developed to fly off of a ship at sea. You see, we didn't fly planes off the ship deck, but they were the ones that were developed just for that reason. And it seems like all these fellas were hot. Yeah. I dated a lot of them. They were fun too. Tyrone Powell was visiting with the group, so he was little bitty.
Okay.
You know, they show him on film.
This big burly guy.
Yeah, he was.
Okay.
He probably was 5'4" 5 inches tall and maybe weighed 120 pounds. That kind of little.
Mm-hmm.
But he was good looking though. An interesting thing. I grew up on Spencer Avenue in Gilt. The There were two new sections to do. One was Gilt, and one was Riverside. They were the big new developments that squeezed through in the 30s. And on Spencer Avenue, we had a trolley. Whether you realize it or not, when you go down there, it's one-way traffic. The traffic, there is a divider in the middle. Well, that was the trolley tracks.
Okay.
And you could ride the trolley downtown Newbern. I don't know how much it cost. We rode it once or twice, but mostly I walked. If you had to go anywhere, you walked. And but let's see, I lived in the house. You turn down to go to the YMCA now, right? One of the two streets that does that. And I had wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. But one of the nice things, I grew up there, but I was born in a very special place. What is now the garden of the Trine Palace, behind the ticket place, the ticket booth, or whatever, and the little auditorium that they did have, there was a house that had an apartment upstairs. And that's what my mother and daddy had, and that's where I was born. Okay. So I was born in the Trine Palace Gardens. I like to tell people, it makes me sound real important. And I like to say that. Let me think what else. In 1945, my husband was discharged from the Army after having been in the Aleutian Islands for 3 years and other places other times. And he had started a new business called, he was calling it Bender Candy Company, but it was Bender Wholesale Grocery Company, really. And I met him at a dance in January. And he had got out in November when the war was over. And he asked me for a date. And we started dating. And he's the one I married in 1948. 1948, we got married. And I helped him with the business. I was working at the bank in First Citizens Bank in Newbern at the time. I worked there for 5 years. But finally, my husband needed help in the business. He was the kind that would look at his bank statement, and whatever that bank statement was, he figured that was how much money he had. I said, honey, how about all those checks that haven't come in yet? Well, what are you going to do about that? Well, I thought everything was done. I said, no. You need a little help. So I was the help. And from then on has been the most wonderful life anyone could ever have had. I had a very fine husband, Virgil Bender. He looked pretty too. Mm-hmm. That was big stuff. And
well, I've seen your children and your grandchildren, so yes, I can agree. Yeah.
Thank you. And I had three wonderful children. That my children grew up, they all grew outside of prison. They all grew.
That's good. That's very good.
That was a very good thing.
Yeah.
They all went to school well in what they did. Janet, a school teacher for 40 years. Jay is I don't know what you call him. He's been a school teacher. He's the mayor of Pollocksville. Mm-hmm. Mark he retired finally last year from his business, Armstrong Grocery in Newbern. So all of them are busy, respectable children of whom I'm very proud. My husband developed when he had a stroke in 1992, 93, excuse me. And so for the next 16 years, I took care of him at home. I was able to keep him at home. He didn't have to go anywhere else, except for driving from doctor to doctor to doctor. You know, you have 3 in one day. That's a lot of traveling you do, in and out, in and out. But we did that. And I got to love, people say, how could you move from Newbern to Pollocksville? There is such a difference between Newbern and Pollocksville, thinking of Newbern as being this sophisticated, grown up, special place, and it was.
Mhm.
And Pollocksville, which, folks, Pollocksville was not so hot. Now, I will tell you why I say that. In 1948, Pollocksville had no lights and no electricity, or the electrician was late coming there. Sewer and water, no. Paved streets, no. The street that led to the schoolhouse was paved, and part of the street down 1 block was paved because it was connected to the state system, but nothing. I know my husband ran for office. I will tell this. My husband ran for office the first year he was in Pollocksville, back home, ready to do. You know how you come home, you back full of fire, you're ready to accomplish so much. And he ran for office of commissioner to collect taxes that Pollocksville had on the books for years. They had never collected any taxes. They were they were in, they were listed. They had been, what's the word I want to use? They they were supposed to be,
Mhm.
but they had never been collected. He ran on the ticket to collect the taxes so we could put some street lights in town. And
About what year was that?
that was 49.
Okay.
And he was defeated because of that. Because of that, because he wanted to collect the taxes. Not that they were enacting some new taxes, they were the same ones that just had not been collected before. And he lost because of that. He was one of 3 people on the board. And after a year, he quit on going to the board, not to name all those people. They always voted against him, whatever he proposed, however to use anything. So he quit going. It sort of took a lot of that starch out of him, meaning to let's do something here. In fact, he had the street in front of our house paved and paid for it himself.
Wow.
He and his daddy. And but things began to change. Things began to change. When I first came to Pollocksville, I can name 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, right off my head, grocery stores. In Pollocksville now, we've got the Walmart, you know, the DG Walmart, everybody calls it.
Mm-hmm.
We have, everything's closed. And of course, when it was developed pretty well, the school had a good reputation. We had, after my son Jay became mayor, we were lucky to develop a sewer system, a water system that is helpful to other parts of the county too, because we can load water, we can do things like that, and do that, and we can also borrow from the Jones County water system, but that makes it a handy, very wonderful thing to have. those grocery stores are all gone, and we had no place to buy groceries at all, not even the filling station.
You know, I mean, you again, such a unique perspective, having grown up during the Depression, having become an adult during World War II. Just how did that develop you as a person? I mean, growing up during such a hard time with the Depression, like I said, in World War II, when you had to ration and all that stuff. What did that life experience teach you, Miss Bender?
It taught me that nobody needed to go without food if they wanted to work for it. I found out that everybody has things they lack that they would like to have. And that there are some people who really want certain things and they're going to work for them hard, do make almost every sacrifice to be sure that this is true. In 1932, I woke up one morning. Mama says, well, we can't do so and so. We had planned to go to Vanceboro to see somebody. The wind had taken out Neuse River Bridge completely, the whole thing from Newbern to Bridgeton. We had no way to get to Bridgeton except to drive to where Weyerhaeuser is now and where Streets Ferry goes through. It was a little two-car ferry. And you could cross the little river, well, I don't even know what to call it, not even a river. It didn't look as wide as this room. And go around around I don't know, to get to Vanceboro. Then you could go from Vanceboro the back way to Bridgeton, but then you couldn't go back to Newbern unless you went the other way back around. And we were isolated for a long time because of that.
Wow.
I don't know how many of Newbernians realize that happened now. 1932, well, I was 90, it's been 90 years ago.
I got to tell you, and I know I speak for Jacob Morgan and I speak for everybody here, this has been an absolute treat. Thank you. We could go for, I know you guys probably need to go, we could go for 3 more hours and I would just be, this has been an absolute treat. Thank you so much for being
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
so
you
much for
for
being a part of
asking
this,
me.
okay?
I'm delighted.
Thank you.
And I love Pollocksville.